Episode 2. So now, you have said it. You have said, I am a king. So what you've done is you've made space around you. So all those spirits that are around you, currently around you, that heard that, will leave you alone to allow you to hear what I want to tell you. Because a lot of people will lose focus. Here's the interesting part that I learned in my journey, going around to people's houses. And every house in the reserve was a spirit, and it was activated by certain words. If there was words of encouragement, say someone thinking of the future or someone planning or things like that, they always went off and got someone to ensure that it never went through. This was in the reserves in my journey. Every house. I was like, wow. So if these men in the reserves wanted to do future things for their people, to even think about the future, activated that spirit. So here's the thing. That spirit that was in the room had to bow down as well too. Because of your words. Something that people don't do. Say, I'm a king. Who actually ever says that? Well, say you're having a fight with your partner. She goes, I think you are. I'm a king. All of a sudden, like, holy fuck. In that moment, that person should have realized what changed. The atmosphere. Probably the lady just thought like, ooh. Never heard you say those words. Just saying those words in front of a woman. Here's the funny part, not all of them. She has to love you for those words to work. You know why? Because a queen will want to lift her king. A bitch will want to trash her man. That's just the way it works. If she's there to lift you, she'll lift you because she'll realize it's like, ooh, when he does really well, I get a lot of presents. So lift your king. The interesting part is though, a king, you, is set up to fail. Especially if that woman starts going a time, angry time we'll call it, angry time. So during that angry time, spirits also have access to your information. It's really sad. It's almost like you're set up to fail. So these women almost act like Siri to the spirit world because they want to ensure that you do not succeed. Living on a reserve. I'm not trashing women. That's just the way it is. And that anger. So think of Tesla. Remember that little thing you had with that all that electricity? Think of that as your partner, female partner. When she's in that time, it's like that's what she is. She's attracting all these negative spirits that are in the room. So if there's a lot of them, or if there's a lot of good spirits, then she turns into a better person. But you have to put those spirits in. It's like they're almost like a lightning rod. That's what it is. They're a lightning rod. So it's just kind of like, will they always be bitches? It's like, if there's angry spirits, yes, they're a lightning rod. And that's how you can fix that. And to succumb those anger that unfortunately is there, because it's there for a reason. It's for you, unfortunately. Is very, very high concentrations of THC. Just keep that spirits away from them. Just keep them sedated and just, hey, you know what I mean? I call them sucky duckies. Like these little things with, you can just suck high concentrations of sativas. Those would be in the mornings because it would wake them up. And indicas and afternoons to kind of when they're time to go to sleep, right? Someone goes, it's like, are we drugging our wives? No. I'm just showing you how it's in that time, right? If you really want to have them around, then so be it. That's how you deal with it, right? And for an interesting part, though, you should never sleep with your significant other when they're on their time, because they suck energy from you too, and all of a sudden you become very lazy and there's things like that, right? You almost turn into a chick. And so in that time, sleep on the floor. Mother Nature looks at that as respect, because you're almost humbling yourself to that time, right? So it's like you're still in the room, but you're on the floor. And you're keeping your chi, if you will. And that's how you keep your chi as a leader. Cats. Don't have cats in the room. Spirits sit inside cats. Especially if you give it human food. Like that stuff that they put in bags. That's human food. It turns them into these things that can pass spirits to you, or sit there and listen and say like, no, maybe not. They come there and it's going to be trashed, especially on the reserve. It's going to be trashed. It's horrible, eh? It's almost just like we were set up to fail the spirit world. It's like, yes, you were. But those words. So imagine this. You're living in the city, and it's like a place that has a lot of traffic. There'd be a lot of spirits being passed around. So those words would be almost pointless there. But if you're in a place of isolation, like in the time we're living with, that is good. We've closed the borders to our reserves. So I want you to think in this way as a leader. Think of that as protection for the community. Like our community called a country, if you will. Europe used to have all these different types of countries. They were not unified. Now they have this EU, and they're like, oh, we're one. It's like, we'll see. Imagine that, you as a leader. So think of security for your community. How would you protect if there's danger coming to your community? I want you to think about that as a thought. Just think of what the borders have been closed, and how would you protect the community if something was to come in? Is there real protection there? The answer is no. It's not. The community is unsafe. If there was, say, a group of people to come in and hurt a bunch of people who don't like the color of your skin, they're coming. You see what Trump did with his KKK? They marched on Washington. They showed people who's boss. What's the equivalency to that? Say KKK equals hate, hate, hate. Right? Okay, done. Do we have something that has a lot of unity, pride, nationalism? They like themselves a lot, these people. Our people, do we have any pride like they do? Can we go up to them and say, wow, you guys really like yourselves? He's like, yes, we like the color of our skin. He's like, that's good. Do we as Indian people like the color of our skin? Do we like ourselves? Good question. Do we have a group that's unified like that? That fights for a community, fights for something they believe in? They believe in something. They're unified. They're one. What are we? We're not unified. So we as leaders, the ones who continue to listen, I'm just trying to show you your power and that gift that lies behind you. Because once you decide to use it, activate it. You turn into a different person overnight. You say like, yeah, sure. You do. Every morning I wake up to a different person. Me. New strength. And it's great when you have the strength because you're just like, I can do things I couldn't do yesterday. It's knowledge that I'm being given. And I'm going to pass it on to you. But I want to show you how to get that knowledge by yourself. For your community. Because the people I'm talking to are First Nations people, yes. Canada, yes. United States, yes. Primarily those two. Because this knowledge that I need to share with you comes from the trees, comes from Mother Nature, comes from your grandparents, your grandmother, our ancestors, I guess they'd say. So let's study that word, ancestor. Okay? People take that word so lightly, ancestor, right? I'm maneuvering down this really slippery slope, down this hill, but it's very equivalent to this information and how it dispels feelings. And the only reason I say that is because knowledge, it wakes something in you, because it allows you to have a foundation, be able to take a next step. And that's all it is that I'm trying to do. That's it. This slippery slope, this hill. So, genetics. Let's look at genetics, okay? I'm going to start with some stories with genetics. So the story I'm going to start with is the beginning of whittling down these children, age 10, these representatives for the 12 tribes. Children separated, taken. He said, go, separate yourselves, right? These genetically pure children of those tribes, because they got mixed with other types of blood that didn't make them holy, right? Israelite, I guess. So that's the genetics I'm going to talk about. So, here's a story. I like stories, they're fun. It gets really boring to just talk. The story that I'm going to tell you is from the Bible. People will be like, ugh. And it's like, yeah. But I want to show you how that Bible is a timepiece for you as a First Nations person. People don't realize their strength and who they are and their place in society. But once you understand your place in society and where you fit, you start to think a little bit better about yourself, about your people. And this is where I'm going to get you to think differently at the end of this episode. I'm going to dare you to, okay? And this was the beginning of my journey where I had to allow myself to think this. So the people who've grown up in a home that has the Bible in it, but also has traditional, a little bit of both, but mostly knowledge, on top of knowledge. But to understand your place, because you'll see. The story time. Here's another slippery slope. Okay. Funny. I love the duality of everything I do, because everything's based on serendipity, and I just laugh at the uniqueness of it sometimes. So this young Moses, he was being pushed into the stream with a crocodile. Just kind of like, here, eat that baby. And so the lady found this little baby, and it was fair to look at, very fair. These Israelites, it was like, well, they're brown. It's like they're mixed. They were mixed people, because that Joseph went and married that white woman, and then all of a sudden they made it okay for everyone else too, and then they mixed and had a lot of I guess they would call them Métis children, mixed hybrids. These are hybrid children. So this little baby, it got infiltrated into the Egyptian lifestyle, and it learned its ways, the internal workings, right? People thinking that this young Moses was part of them because he had the same skin color as them. These Egyptians, they're white people. And then eventually it came out that he was not one of them. His brother, in anger, went and told everybody that he's not even one of us. You say, what do you mean? Not one of you. Look at my skin color. He goes, inside you're a fucking Israelite. He looks at his mom and says, is this true? He says, yes, I'm sorry. Because if she lied, she would have been killed on the spot. You do not lie to a future king. She was killed on the spot. You did not lie. And Moses is like, it was all about the purity. And once everyone knew that he wasn't this pure that they thought he was, I was like, So he ran in shame to his own community. But they looked at him and just like, whatever. Where was the pity when we asked for it? But inside of him was still that love. Even though all his life he was taught to be this almost a king, a pharaoh, almost. But that knowledge gained was what they were looking for, right? That knowledge. It's now in the cells of that being, the genetics. So Moses, of course, goes out. He murders this Egyptian. It was a test. He's like, oh, he was a murderer. He's like, what was his test? And she says, well, you kill for your own people? And so let's see if it's like good. He's a trained killer, right? He's trained to use every type of weapon. He's useful. So he goes out into the wilderness, in shame, and becomes even more useful. All that information does not disappear. It's just more information's added on to this man. So finally he goes out and creates new life. Then eventually he just wanted to give up. He just, right? He just longed for that life. Once you've had that really, really, really good life, it's hard to go back. And that's kind of like I guess the longing that he could never fill. But that was unfortunately his destiny. His destiny was to give up that body, that Moses. That was his destiny. And then finally, he turned 40. 40 years old is the magic number. So this 40-year-old man met his doom. Went up and he met nature. And they say the spirit, right? Yes, great spirit, nature. The sun, this great spirit. The one that people should not worship. And just know. He said, that's the great spirit. That's your creator. He's like, okay. Then leave it there. So he spoke to the Moses and just like, hey, showed him everything, told him everything. And just like, oh. He's like, but you need to go back and to Egypt. And he said, no, I'm never going back. There's no way I'll ever make me go back. He goes, what if I led you? And he said, no, I will not go back. Then he said, give me your body then. He says, take it. Because he did not want to live anymore. Because he was programmed to not want to hurt his family though. He says, well, what about my family? He says, the body's not going to die. You'll just go off and go to this place they call heaven. He says, so be it. And so they took this body for Moses. And they went off and used it. Went off to Egypt and took the people out of their bondage. The bondage was in their mind as well. And that's what the journey was to unbond themselves from their master. And there's some who couldn't. And they said, let's turn back. Right? Those ones were taken out. Too sweet. Kill them. Nature did that. He said, separate yourself from them. And then, it's like, well, how did they do it? Is they did a whole religious open them all up? Possibly. Or maybe a tree took them out. Maybe their pets turned on them. Nature turned on them. Nature said these weak ones have to be taken out. That blood that was mixed with the Israelites, who were journeyers, we'll call it. They journeyed around and just believing that faith that was inside their genetics, right? That faith. That was the faith that they had to believe that they were going to be taken care of. Versus someone who just sits there and gets a job from 9 to 5 and it's just like, do they have faith? Probably not. Because they do not believe that they're going to be able to have anything. So they gave up their faith, unfortunately. And they went and succumbed to the beast called money. On our journey, we're going to learn how to live without money. As a leader, you need to learn how to not love money. And how to just be able to allow nature to give you what it gives. But here's the interesting part. In this journey, these places that you serve, I'm going to give you a certain meal that you're to feed these people. So it's almost like you're serving the king himself. The meal a king would eat. You know why they have certain meals? Because that food keeps certain entities, energies away. That really, really healthy food. Right now, the food that society eats is like, it's coffee, it's takeout, it's everything you should not be digesting to be able to wake up those gifts. I'll give you a special diet for the ones who want to take this journey. Because all these First Nations men are welcome. I'm not going to say no. But the ones who continue to listen will continue to listen, who don't, who don't. It's like nature will take care of that. Serendipity will take care of that. I will just continue to walk. I'll see how many people will walk with me. Don't walk behind me, walk beside me. Because leaders walk together. You ever see birds? They fly together. But first, they always wait for that leader to go and lead. And that's who you are in that community, is that leader. That person who's going to just wait for the community to lift them. Not go and speak until they tell you to speak. In this month, there'll be a lot of listening. And just not talking. But in this time, you'll find that it's a lot of fun. An interesting part about this as well, too, is stay stoned. Because your spirit guides, they live off that substance that takes you closer to the spirit world. And in this time, no alcohol will be injected inside this body of yours while you're on this trail, because that is other spirits. So as Moses was leading these people away from Egypt, he was leading them over to the mountain. He said, bring them over there. He says, I'll give them the tablets. They're laws. Right? Because these people were bad people. If you have to give laws to someone, they're bad people. Right? Good people do not lead laws. No. So they had to give them laws. So in this wilderness, they eventually started whittling down, and there's a generation gone, and they were getting rid of that munyao blood that was mixed, because it was weak in faith, because they've been living in the cities for so long that they forgot to believe that something will provide for them. But these Israelites, they had this faith that was still there. So as these families were being created, there was these youth that were going to be taken away. Foster children. Ones that wouldn't be missed. And so eventually Moses was done in the community. He distributed all the gifts to the people. They knew how to stop the sun. They knew how to act towards that little tent. That mercy seat, it was an actual seat. Only certain people could go there and get that knowledge, because it was entrusted to only certain people. And that seat would be a test. And some people would go there thinking they were ready, and they would just die. It's like, bonehead. Right? So this knowledge is going to make you a different person. This food is going to make you a different person. It's like, how do you make nice people? Give them food that's alive. That's it. Here's an interesting fact. Someone goes, well, how do you make world peace? Give them food that's alive, food that's been grown in soil that has a certain nutritional value, and then we'll call that a certain frequency of some sort. And all that really good sustenance inside the stomach will activate the right type of organisms, enzymes that live within the water, the air, everything. You are what you eat. But currently, possibly yourself, you eat food that's dead, that comes from a cardboard. It's like if your food comes from a cardboard, then it should not be injected. People with gifts will never see gifts eating that food. The water you get should come from a stream. But I warn you though, a lot of people think, oh, I just gotta drink light water. No. You have to be active after that too. Because this water is going to wake you up, but it's also going to kill organisms that live within your body. Parasites. So these parasites that live within your body come from meat. Here's a good test. I guess the first one. Meat. Don't eat meat anymore. Fish is the only meat that you will consume. If you can, eat lots of it. That oil is important. Eat them whole and eat fish that have a lot of oil. Bake it, put in some lentils in there, some onions, lots of spices. Eat that for your meat. No more eating your brother. So imagine this. The First Nations people have all stopped eating meat. And the Sasquatch is able to get close to them because it's like, oh, they're not going to kill us because we don't smell our brothers on them. They depict these Sasquatch as meat eaters. If they were, you'd be dead. They eat the vegetation. And if you were to eat the vegetation that only came from the environment around you and you grew your own food, you would be like that Sasquatch. And there's some of you in the communities that will be able to speak to it. You as a leader, would you need to speak to that Sasquatch? Yes or no? If there was danger and if they were protecting you. Possibly. Possibly not. Right? The interesting part is everything will just fall into place. My gifts as they activated, I had no warning until they were needed at that moment. It was just like, ugh. I know something that I never knew 2 seconds ago. And that's just how it works. It's not where you go and read something, all of a sudden you say, oh, information uploaded from this book. It's like, no. These gifts run on a different type of knowledge. Of course, the pain, yes. So as these children were separated, there was one line for David, one line for and they took these children, one male, one female. Moses did. And he led them across all the way up. But they had to wait 7 years though. Mother Nature said, nope, we'll not let them in until they've had knowledge in how to keep us safe, how to humble themselves. We will not allow these humans to destroy this little heaven we've created. We need them to know how to humble themselves. So yes, so 7 years, these 10-year-old children kind of just meandered their way over north. And it is to take them, so yes, to take them towards Atlantis. So yes. He's like, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah? He's like, yes, okay. So take them there, up towards there, and then take them over to the land of Canaan. He's like, yes, sir. And that was Moses listening to his master, Mother Nature. And so Moses also was listening to Mother Nature. And then for 7 years, they taught these children how to listen to Mother Nature and how to bow down, humbling themselves to Mother Nature. People forget who brought them into this world, Mother Nature. Where did you come from? That soil. It's like, that's your mother right there. So for 7 years, these children became 17-year-olds. But they knew how to go get a glass of water properly, like an animal, activating the 369 in a human that Tesla talked about. So if you ever look at a gazelle, for example, they're very graceful animals. And if you ever see them take a drink of water, they'll take a little curtsy sometimes. It's like, well, who did they curtsy? It's like probably the one who gave them the water. And if you'll notice that they'll take a drink and they'll look up, and they'll do it in threes. That 3 is a special number. If you look at Tesla, he always did things in threes because he understood why. And it had to do with the spirit world and the protection that 3 gave him from his knowledge. Because knowledge is like, when you understand how things work, unfortunately, you have to be able to withstand it. It's almost like a test, really. For me, it's like I feel the spirit more and more when I get angry. Like your girlfriend who's that little electrical bomb, enticing all those negative spirits around, right? So you ensure that you don't succeed. And if I get angry, I become that. So I always gotta hold my anger. But it's always a test, everything. It's like, why did you stub your toe? What did you do? Did you get angry? Or you just kind of be like, ugh. You're like, oh, I love that pain. Put love in that pain. Right? And the funny part is that pain will go away as soon as you said it. That's just weird, eh? You kind of like, strange. That pain just kind of stopped. And you realize it's kind of like strange. And you'll start to understand the power of your words. Like the word hate. Do not put it into your vocabulary anymore. Put love in its place. Even just saying love, I love this weather. I love this job. Hopefully you don't have a job. The ones I'm talking to don't have a job. It's even hard to say that. Eh? So these 10-year-old children finally were trusted. And they crossed over to Canaan. You guys call it Canada now. And they created families and multiplied. Then eventually they said, okay, let's split them up so they can kind of just go their own ways, because now there's a lot of them, right? They're starting to have different types of problems that include. It says separate them. Yes, sir. And they were separated accordingly. Then it said, however, there will be 2 that will be instructed to never, ever to create homes, foundations. They'll just have the faith. He says, okay. There'll be a line of Moses and a line of David. And they will sojourn together. He's like, so be it. And they always just roamed around on that faith, believing that they were going to be looked after. Mother Nature spoke to them, spoke to their grandmothers, spoke to certain ones that had certain roles. People didn't grow up wondering, it's like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to be an elder. Oh, I bet that person would have just laughed. It's like, that is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard there, man. So you have no choice in the matter. Funny part is they probably would have looked at that kid weirdly and said, we'll watch you for what that word you just said. Because that's not a community thought. Because a person would never lift themselves. They would wait for the community to lift them. Because everything was based on rewards. These First Nations people that roamed around, these Israelites. And their values were all based on loving each other, not murder. And so they depict these people as murderers They couldn't murder. It wasn't in them to do it. That's why they were able to be slaughtered, because they couldn't kill. It was not in them. It wasn't brought there yet, but it came, right? 1492, it showed up in the form of false love. There was never any love there, unfortunately. And you, as First Nations people, you were and are those Israelite children. That's where you come from. That's where you genetically were born from. And those spirits that live within you are ready to be awoken. They're ready to be used by you, utilized by the community. These are not for you. Never ever think that these gifts belong to you. They belong to the community, because it's our time now to come as one, to be those warriors, to be those people that used to work together as one. So, as this warrior, leader that you are, I want you to do something for me before I take off. I want you to use your voice more. I want you to speak. Because those spirits are like dogs. So imagine that there's all of these reserve mutts following you all the time. And those are spirits. It's just like, how come a person has so many spirits? It's kind of like they get followed by these mutts, and they allow them to come into their home, because they just walk in and do that. Here's the interesting part. If you have a girlfriend who's just nagging and she's always screaming all the time, it's like she's useful for chasing away those spirits. It's almost just kind of like, hey, here, honey, scream. What words should I yell out? Get her to yell out certain words. It's like, get out of here, right? She's telling you to get out of here. In the spirit world, all those spirits are like, ugh. It's kind of like, okay, thank you. Her anger can be useful to you, right? If you know how to use it with certain words. Because you as a master, as a king, say if you have a house, right, and you have children, you have authority over that house. The sad part is a lot of people, if they don't have authority over that house, is they can't chase away those spirits using their voice. But if you own that house or have authority over that house at that time where you live in, then yes, you can use that voice. But here's what I'm going to leave you with for today. I need you to count how many times you bow. Say, for example, you're walking down, or all of a sudden you see a lighter, and you pick it up, bowed. All of a sudden you're just like, ask yourself, did I just pick up a spirit, or did I just drop off a spirit? Because you think of yourself as a vessel, and these spirits are just little orbs who need you to pass them around. Okay? So count how many times you've bowed to a spirit and take it into yourself. Or drop something off at someone's house. All of a sudden you left anger at someone's house, da 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 da. Right? It's like, do that. And then you'll realize it's like, wow, I'm a bitch. Yes. To these spirits. Eventually watch other people as well too. But you as a king can stop that. Is the way that you pick up that lighter. A king would curtsy down, right? To make sure that that spine does not curve. Because that's a bow. It went down. A curve, let's think of that bow. But if you go down, just, right? Pick it up. Drop down to your knee if you have to. But do not bow down that. And if you do have to bow down to your knee, if you're a weak little bitch, unfortunately, do it in front of a tree. At least Mother Nature would be like, thank you. And you bless yourself, right? Think of Mother Nature as a live being. This tree is alive. Go hug that tree. You've blessed yourself. Any spirits that are following you will not want to be near you because they do not like nature. If you're in a city, it's hard. These people in the reserve are going to have an easier time in the information that I get them. The people in the city, it's harder if you have all these spirits around you because they're always there. But if you're in lockdown and you're on a reserve and you have this house and not too many people are visiting, then perfect. And if you're all by yourself and you're a bunch of men, you're well on your way. Because then you don't have to worry about these spirits trying to come and bother you, because you want to just have your mind clear of all those things trying to get a hold of you. So watch that bow. And I will try to not go off topic because I love to talk.